Okay, so continuing with the discussion of restrictions and determiner phrases, we'll look at an easier sentence in this video: some kiwi is evil. So, something is evil tells us that there is an evil thing. Some kiwi is evil tells us the same thing, but about the kiwis specifically. So we have a restriction. We're not some kiwis evil is a restriction of something is evil. It's a restriction of the claim to just the kiwis. In this case, the restriction actually strengthens the claim because it specifies where we're saying there definitely is evil out there, but now we're specifying where it's located. And before we were saying, oh, it's somewhere, I'm not sure where. Now we're saying, well, it's in among the kiwis, at least among other places. So, more informative. And again, we can break this in half into some kiwi, the determiner phrase, and is evil, the verb phrase. The determiner phrase, all right, that's what we're talking about, and the verb phrase is what we're saying about what we're talking about. And the determiner phrase has two parts. It has the quantity word some, and it has the noun phrase kiwi. And so what this means is we're talking about the kiwis, and we're applying that's what the noun phrase does, and the some tells us we're applying the verb phrase to at least one of them. So how do we symbolize some kiwis evil? Well, if some kiwi is evil, then there's a thing that has two properties. It's a kiwi and it's evil. So there's a thing, kx and ex. And again, we can see that the sum generates the existential quantifier, but it also gives us the conjunction. And then the noun phrase from inside the verb phrase, kiwi, goes in one conjunct, and evil, ex, goes in the other. So if we look at it this way, we can see the quantity word some giving us the existential and the and. The noun gives us the noun from the determiner phrase, or the quantifier phrase, gives us kiwi, and the verb phrase is evil gives us ex. So this means we have what we can call a determiner phrase verb phrase method. What you want to do is you find the determiner phrases and verb phrases if there are multiple ones. And in the determiner phrase, you find the quantity word and the noun phrase. And then you enter the determiner word, the quantity word in the determiner phrase, gives you a quantifier, and it also gives you the connective. So you enter both of those in the tree, and then you can symbolize the determiner phrase's noun in one position, in the appropriate position, and the verb phrase in the other position. In the case of some sentences, that is the sum f sentences, it doesn't actually matter which order you do. You could do kx and ex, or you can do ex and kx. It doesn't matter. By convention, we'll do the noun phrase from the determiner phrase in the first conjunct and the verb phrase in the second conjunct. But you can do it either way, and it's equivalent, and it will be marked correct either way. With every f is g, you have to put the f from every f into the antecedent, and the verb phrase goes in the consequent. There's some important notes to this method. You need to make sure that all variables are within the scope of a quantifier. If you have a variable that is not within the scope of a quantifier, your symbolization is wrong. You also want to avoid quantifier overlay. No quantifier should be within the scope of another. And right now, well, no, as of the homework for Sunday, there will be homework problems that have multiple quantifiers in them, but they should not have quantifiers one within the scope of another. And don't forget the extraction test, because in some cases we might have quantifiers within the scope of a other connective. So remember, in the couple lectures past with the scope contrast lecture, we had something is lonely and something is a novelist. And the way you would symbolize that is you would say, aha, I can remove something is lonely and something, sorry, if I remove the and, then I'm left with something is lonely and something is a novelist. Those are both two sentences, so the and passes the removal test, the extraction test. So you need to make sure that you're clear about, is the first thing to symbolize a quantifier from a determiner phrase, or a sentential connective. And the way you find that out is if there are sentential connectives that pass the extraction test, then you symbolize those first. If they're not, then you don't. And this is because, right, as I was saying, some of our sentences will have chapter 1 or 2 main connectives. Their main connective will not be a quantifier. So far, we have the symbolization, every f is g, and that's symbolized as for each x, if fx then gx, and some f is g, and that's symbolized as some x, fx and gx. There are two more important determiner phrases, no f and only f's. And so in the next two videos, I will discuss those and then summarize the material we've covered in these several videos.